Okay, this may not be clear from your point of view, but let us see what are the things we have discussed. We have already finished lesson 1 to 10 in Bible archaeology, and we have studied definition of Bible archaeology. What is meant by Bible archaeology? May be defined as a study based on the excavation, decipherment, and critical evaluation of the records of the past as they affect the Bible. So this is the definition of Bible archaeology, which we have to learn by heart. Illustrating the Bible in its historical background, contemporary life, all these things. And regarding the birth of this Bible archaeology, it is said here, until the beginning of the 19th century, very little was known of biblical times and biblical background. But this is the beginning of modern archaeology. Modern archaeology may be said to have its beginning in 1798. Okay, not down the year. When does modern archaeology have its beginning, and when and where? It had its beginning in 1798 when the rich antiquities of the Nile Valley were opened to the scientific study of Napoleon Egyptian expedition. So this is the time and the place where modern archaeology are being regarded as its beginning. So the next one is archaeological sites of the Bible. Where are they? Or biblical Ur, where are they? Underline and note down this. Mesopotamia. Biblical Ur include areas of Mesopotamia, Persia, Egypt, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Asia Minor, Greece, Italy, and a few others. So if you are being asked, write down the biblical Ur. So these are the answers. And what archaeology can do? Here it says that we should not say that archaeology proved the Bible, because the Bible need not need to be proved. It is better to speak archaeology illustrate, illuminate, and supplement the Bible record. It is better to speak of archaeology illustrating, illuminating, and supplementing the biblical record. And what are some values of archaeology? If being asked, the importance of archaeology. What are the values of archaeology if you are being asked? General cultural background. Okay, if you explain a little bit. Archaeology provides the general cultural background, the history of the Bible. Archaeology provides the general cultural background of the history of the Bible. It gives us a background understanding of the Bible. And the resurrection of forgotten people. If there had not been archaeological discovery, many ancient cities and ancient civilization would be lost forever. But because of this biblical archaeology, they are being spread up, means they are being dug up from the ground again, and forgotten people have been brought to life by archaeological spade. So resurrection of forgotten people. Example are the Hittites. With the discovery of the Hittite capital, we can affirm the existence of the Hittite people, the Hittite civilizations. And chronology. Archaeology also greatly helps us in chronology. Archaeology provides this chronological trustworthiness of the Bible. If there had not been archaeological discovery, people may still doubt the year, the time when such things happened, such incident took place. Regarding the Babylonian Chronicle, if we compare with the biblical story of the slavery during the time of the Babylonian conquest, by comparing the Babylonian history with the biblical history of captivity period, we can trace the possible death In our calendar, the date would be 16 March 597 BC. So this is the taking away of Jehoiakim. The taking away of the Israel king will be at this exact dates and year. This can be found in archaeology. Identify biblical sites. Okay. With the help of archaeology, we can be sure that this place existed in this point of the map. Helps in translating the Bible. Ancient words used may have different meaning with this modern days use. So with the help of archaeology, some difficult words which might have different meaning in ancient days can be easily interpreted. Demonstrate accuracy of the Bible. So these are all the points of what are some values of archaeology. General culture background, resurrection of forgotten people, chronology, identify biblical site, help in translating the Bible, and demonstrate accuracy of the Bible. So in lesson 2, we rightly go to Archaeology of Genesis, Babylonian Christian account. This is the Babylonian Christian account. Who discovered and when was it discovered? In 1845. This is important. Babylonian Christian account. The other name for Babylonian Christian account is Enuma Elish. Enuma Elish. Note down this, Enuma Elish. Who discovered and when was it discovered? It was discovered in 1845 by Austin Henry Layard. And what did he discover? He discovered the big library, the great library of, famous library of Assurbanipal. Who is Assurbanipal? King of Assyria. King of Assyria. At which country? In Assyria. The library consists of thousands of clay tablets, among which a copy of Babylonian Christian account dating to the days of Hammurabi, king of Babylon. So here, two things are being mentioned here. The discovery was actually a library of Assurbanipal, king of Nineveh, king of Assyria. But in his library, in the library of Assurbanipal, one document, a very important document, tens of thousands of clay tablets, In Assurbanipal library, this King Hammurabi books has been found. King Hammurabi's records in clay tablets has been found in whose library? In Assurbanipal library, Assurbanipal preserved the records, the writings of the time of Hammurabi, 1700 BC. And what is the importance of this Enuma Elish? It records some story similar to the Bible, some story very similar to Genesis. For example, if we compare Enuma Elish and if we compare Babylonian Christian account with our Genesis account, Genesis speaks of 7 days of creation. Babylonian account was recorded on 7 tablets. The Christian account was recorded in 7 tablets. Both describe a time when the earth was raised and void. In Genesis, order follow chaos. In Enuma Elish, Marduk defeat chaos and establish order. Both account tell of the creation of moon, star, plant life, animal, and man. Man was created on the 6th day according to Genesis. Enuma Elish also recorded creation of man on the 6th tablet. So these are the similarities between Babylonian Christian account and Genesis account. And why is there similarity between Babylonian account and Genesis account? Both came from a common inheritance. Both came from the same place. The various races of mankind pose a knowledge of the events of creation. But Genesis would be the most original one, unpolluted. And regarding the flood story, the deluge account, deluge in flood, George Smith had discovered the deluge story, which he reported in this time, 1872. And with the discovery, with this deluge account, or we can say, the resemblance of the Babylonian account of flood, Babylonian account and Genesis are as follows. So this flood story is far more similar than the Christian account. Only the names of the hero are being changed. Both accounts hold that deluge was divinely planned by God. Both accounts connect the deluge with defection in human race. Both accounts assert that the hero deluge was divinely instructed to build a huge boat. Both accounts indicate the physical cause of the flood. Both accounts tell of the deliverance of the hero and his family. Both accounts specify the origin of the flood. Both accounts name the landing place of the boat. Both accounts include striking detail. Both accounts describe act of worship by the hero after his deliverance. Both accounts alludes to the bestowing special blessing upon the hero after the disaster. So there is a lot of similarities between the Babylonian reports and the biblical reports. So for those who cannot believe the Bible, they may believe this Babylonian account, because the Babylonian account was well preserved, and the evidence is still seen there. So there is very similarity between the Babylonian record and the biblical record. So if we believe the Babylonian record, if the superficial meaning, if we believe it, we can easily believe the book of Genesis. Because by studying in detail, we can find that Genesis is more original than the Babylonian account, because by the writing, by the nature of the writing, though this was first written, this Babylonian Christian account was supposed to be written before the book of Genesis was written, but still then, the people in Babylon also had learned the story of the flood, the story of creation. Because Babylon is the place where Adam and Eve was there. So though there is a lot of similarity between Genesis and Babylon account, Babylon story, but that the difference outweighs the similarities. The difference is far more than the similarities, okay? For example, this Babylonian flood story was found in the Gilgamesh, the quest for eternity, okay? Gilgamesh. This is a very famous story of Babylon. So in the story of Gilgamesh, the story of Noah had been mentioned in under different character. Okay, a lot of differences there. First, the gods of Gilgamesh sent the flood without a reasonable cause, where the biblical God sends the flood as a punishment. The purpose of the flood was different. Babylonian God thought that they formed the decision in a council, are never in consensus about the flood, and is left alone to blame. Here, regarding the Babylonian story, the flood occurred due to one of the gods only. But in the Bible, God makes a rational verdict because He is motivated by ethical reason. He punishes the corrupt but saves the righteous. For ethical reason, because of morality, because of the excessive wickedness of the people, that God punishes the human race. And important, God sends the flood not because men are too noisy, but because He repents His creation. That's what I have already said. Another difference is rather omission in this case. The authors of the Bible make is what? Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is the Babylonian Noah. Okay? Utnapishtim asks God how to answer the people. And is wrathful against me, and I will no longer live in the land. So these are the Babylonian story. The third important difference lies between Utnapishtim and Noah. Is not selected to survive the flood based on any virtue. He merely owes his survival to his cleverness. The final difference is Gilgamesh and the flood. In Genesis, the ending scene of the story, the last interaction between the survival and his gods. The gods of Gilgamesh make an arrow sending the flood to exterminate mankind. So here, though there are some superficial outward similarities, but the inner nature and the inner purpose of the flood is completely different. So from here we have to learn a lesson that we may discuss here, that more than 250 flood stories have been discovered around the world. This shows that Genesis flood, the story of Genesis flood, is a real story preserved by many nations, or let's say all cultures of the world. Lesson 3, evidence of Genesis narrative, the Garden of Eden. The 4 rivers which run into Genesis in the Garden of Eden. Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, Euphrates. Euphrates was still until this day. And this Hiddekel is just the ancient names of the Tigris that was well known. These 2 rivers were still there. And this Gihon will be the Guhana, and Pishon will be the Pisano. These 2 are not a river anymore, but it has been modified into canal system. So with the discovery of this 4 rivers, we can know the locations of Eden. 4 rivers run out of Eden. Means the Garden of Eden will be located at the beginning of this 4 rivers. Okay. So the important thing is Genesis located at the beginning of human life in this very region, and archaeological research has demonstrated to be the cradle of civilization. He located at the side of Eden just north of Babylon. It will be north of Babylon. Okay, the Garden of Eden will be at the north of Babylon, not in the south, but in the north, because this 4 rivers had started from the north of Babylon. Regarding the fall of man, some archaeological discoveries show a seal, which describe or which depict a man and a woman seated on either side of the fruit tree. To the left of the woman stands a serpent. So with this seal, we can find, by just looking at the picture, we can know it talks about Adam and Eve. Because one man, one woman seated beside the tree, and on the side of the woman, a serpent was standing. So if we had seen such carving or such writing, everybody who had read the story of Genesis would easily know that this still is depicting the fall of man. The beginning of civilization was mentioned in Genesis 4:22. That, for example, this Tubal-Cain was an instructor of the science of metallurgy, craftsmanship, bronze and iron. So Genesis 4 is already describing about the Iron Age, the Bronze Age period. Since the use of copper fairly common by 4000 BC or earlier, evidence by discoveries of the site Halat and Chagrar Bajar, northwestern Mesopotamia. So here, the Bible in Genesis 4 mentioned Tubal-Cain. So the time of Tubal-Cain would be this 4000 BC. The long life patriarchs. Before the discovery of the Babylonian records, people do not believe that people could live for more than 900 years. But in the Babylonian records, with the records of Berosos, okay, remember this Berosos? Where was it mentioned? Berosos, a Babylonian priest of the 3rd century. Underline this from the writing of the Berosos. During the 3rd century BC, existence of Sumerian kings list is reported unbelievably long range before the flood. So in that list, the total number of years where the Babylonian king ruled was given 241,200 years. We are not sure about their year, how long is their year, but still then, by seeing the figure, okay, the longest reign is for 3,200 years, and it rapidly decreases up to the least of 100 years. So, for example, if their year is same with a day of our time, ruling this 100 days would be more than 3 months. And this would still be more than 900 or 1,000 years, even if we convert it into days. So with the discovery of the Babylonian king's list, no one will believe that people live for such a long time, but the Babylonian had well preserved regarding the long life of the people during those times before the flood. Regarding the flood, anthropologists have collected 250 to 300 such flood stories around the world. All people of the earth had this story of the flood. That shows that Genesis flood is true in the real sense of the term. Then the findings of Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was found, we can see in the picture in the videos also, on Mount Ararat, on traditional Ararat. A boat safe home some 500 feet long. It was discovered. It was photographed. You can see the photograph later on. The Tower of Babel, the structure which the Babel builder attempted to erect and which became the symbol of their God-defying disobedience and pride. Tower of Babel. These are the common building structure of the Babylonian times, which is called ziggurats. Okay, ziggurats. As I have told you during the class, these ziggurats would be a building, okay, which is big at the base and smaller by smaller on the top. Like this structure is very common in ancient Mesopotamia. So who knows the Tower of Babel? These buildings are being erected in resemblance of the Tower of Babel. It is called ziggurats, a mountain top, pinnacle or a mountain top. And the oldest discovered at Uruk, biblical erect, Madan Warka. The oldest ziggurats was discovered. Flood story from around the world. The Greek has their own story, the Roman, the Egypt, the Persian, North Siberian, North Central Siberian. Okay. Even the Burmese also have their flood story. Current, Upper Burma. The Chinese also have their flood story. Western Australia. So these are in the notes you have seen. In the internet, you can see those 300 flood stories around the world, which are very similar to what is described in the book of Genesis. All these people do not copy it from the Bible, okay? They have their own flood story that may be passed down from generation to generation, that has been preserved by oral tradition. So with the passing of years, the story may be more corrupted. But still then, by studying the story, we can deduct that this story has some similar background with the Genesis flood. The Genesis account is the purest of its form. And all these 300 other flood stories around the world are just a divergence from that true story. In lesson 4, we have learned Abraham and archaeological discovery. The name of Abraham. This Abraham is very important in the biblical history. After Abraham, Moses' story was there, but even Moses could not make Abraham less importance. If we accept the biblical figure, so this will be important. How to deduct, how to find out the date of birth or the year of birth of Abraham. Some figure will be given, or you have to learn them by heart. This is one example of how to find out the year in biblical archaeology. So here, first of all, you have to know that based on this Bible, where is that? Based on 1 King chapter how much? It may be mentioned here. Repeat once more, what is it?
6:1. 1 King 6:1.
Okay, First King, according to 1 King 6:1, where does it mention here? According to 1 King chapter 6 verse 1, okay, this one. With this biblical verse, this Bible verse states that 480 years had passed from Exodus to Solomon reign. So we can come back 480 years from the time of Solomon. It was recorded clearly about Solomon in world history. So from that, okay, we have to trace back from 961 BC. Okay, 961 BC is the 4th year of Solomon's reign. So with this world history, if we subtract 480 years, it will come to 1441 BC. That means this is the year in which the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. Okay. And the Bible also says that the Israelites spent 430 years in Egypt. So if we subtract 430 years, we'll come to 2086 BC. 2086 BC. Since it is BC, we have to add up. Okay. So this is the year when the Israelites first come to Egypt. Or the families of Joseph, those 70 people came to Egypt. So this is the year. And the Bible further said that Abraham was 75 years. No, not that yet. And the biblical records also said that the patriarchs stayed in Canaan for 215 years. 215 years. The patriarchs spent 215 years in Canaan. This is the biblical record. So, when did Abraham enter Canaan? We have to add up this 215 years again. By adding 2086 to 216, we can find 1872. So this, and Abraham entrance into Canaan, okay, this one is the right one, 2161 BC. And the Bible also said that Genesis 12 says that Abraham was 75 years when he left Haran for Canaan. So at the time of Abraham entering into Canaan, he was already 75 years. So if we add up, this will be the date of birth or the year of birth of Abraham. So Abraham was born in 2086 BC. So this is how we have to calculate. This will carry 5 marks, okay? You consult your notes once again. The name of Abraham was written in such a form, Abba Amram, like this. And also the name of Jacob, Yakub El, like this. And the name of Isaac was recorded in ancient literature as Isaac El, Yakuel. Okay. All these names of the ancient record may refer to Abraham, Jacob, Isaac. So if you know all this, though these findings, though this name may not be the same men like of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, but we have to learn that those names are common names during those times because they were very famous. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob are very famous around Mesopotamia and in the land of Canaan. So many people named their children after them. So these are the common names found in Abraham times. The town of Haran was still found in Balik River, near Balik River. So these are some examples of Genesis archaeology, and one of the case study we have done in Genesis is the discovery of Nuzu tablets. Okay, Nuzu tablets. So these Nuzu tablets, how many tablets are found in Nuzu? 20,000 clay tablets. And who wrote these clay tablets? By the Hurrian scribe in the Babylonian cuneiform language. In what language did they write? Cuneiform language. 20,000 clay tablets. And what does this Nuzu tablets mention? It had mentioned the tradition, the culture and tradition of Abraham's time. Okay. In these Nuzu tablets, we can find the general custom and tradition of the patriarchal age. Some of the similarities are extent of property, marriage contact, adoption, birthright, inheritance. Whatever culture or tradition followed during the time of Abraham are being mentioned in these Nuzu tablets. That clearly shows that the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the story mentioned there, how they get married, or how they exchange their property, or the importance of birthright, why Esau sold his birthright, and what's the importance of that birthright, and regarding inheritance, why Rachel stole his father's image. We can understand the general background of all the importance of all this. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob followed the tradition of those days before the law of Moses was given. So this clearly helps us in an understanding, better understanding of Abraham's time. The division of the earth was mentioned in the Bible, Genesis 10:25. In his day, in the days of Peleg, P-E-L-E-Z, okay, Peleg may be mentioned in the Bible. In the days of Peleg, that was divided. So that is divided means the dispersion of the human race due to the Tower of Babel. That is the first explanation. And the second explanation may be the geographical division of the earth into different continents. From the supercontinent to different continents. The theory of Pangea, which you have learned in geography, it can also mention those division of the earth, the physical division of the earth. But the scattering of the people is far more believable than the physical division, of course. That Tower of Babel we have already mentioned. Lesson 5, we have done a case study of Sodom and Gomorrah. Location of the cities, southern part of the Dead Sea. Okay, where was Sodom and Gomorrah located? If being asked by one mark question, it was located in the southern part of the Dead Sea. And why? The Bible had mentioned the location of. The Bible had given us 3 hints. Number 1, Valley of Siddim was mentioned there. It was full of slime pits. It was full of Alcatara, okay, slime pits, asphalt, or bitumen as well. Bitumens. So the Bible had mentioned that around the Valley of Siddim or Sodom, these petroleum products are vast in number. Until this day, their petroleum product was still found, very common in those areas. Secondly, it was said that if nearby Zoar, okay, Zoar, the city of Zoar can be discovered. And thirdly, Genesis says that the battle of the four was found in the Valley of Siddim, which is the Salt Lake. Salt Lake. The Bible had mentioned the Salt Lake. The Salt Lake was still there until this day. And it was one of the name of Dead Sea. The Salt Lake, because of its very salty nature. Okay. And the Bible has given us these 3 hints where you can find the location. But now, sadly, it is now under the Dead Sea. Why? Because of the explosion, a large chunk of earth or a large part of the land are being exploded. So the water is filling up those holes, those space. The water level is increasing, can be proved easily, because the Dead Sea is the lowest part of the earth, where all waters run in, no waters run out, because it is below the sea level. 1,300 feet below sea level, the Dead Sea is below sea level. It is called Dead Sea because nothing flows out, and no organism, no living beings or things can live in that Dead Sea, because the salinity is too high. Other than evaporation, okay, the water do not go out. That is why the water keeps on increasing. And archaeological confirmation location of the cities, archaeological confirmation is there. That Babedra, one city is near Sodom and Gomorrah was found. That Babedra is not a city, it is the religious place where the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had visited. But the study of this Babedra discovery shows that there is abrupt halt, abrupt stoppage of human activities. Suddenly, without any preparation, people may think that they'll do the same activities the next day. How they arrange their things, they are very unprepared for the sudden death, okay, or for the sudden stoppage of the activities. They are not well prepared. Abrupt close, okay. When occupation came to abrupt close. The study of this Babedra said that there is an abrupt close of human civilization or human activities in that place. The reason is that the city of Sodom and Gomorrah was burned out within a day. So in the next day, no one survived again to go to this religious place of Babedra. The nature of destruction rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone. The Bible said that God had rained down brimstone, sulfur and fire out of heaven. This sulfur is gunpowder, okay? So if that much combustible, explosive material, if coming down from heaven, such a great explosion can be easily recognized. So destruction of earthquake, Joseph Fawcett also mentioned about the destruction of the city. Herland reconstruct the story. Even those who do not believe the biblical narratives can still prove that the city of Sodom and Gomorrah are being destroyed as the Bible says. Okay, due to the explosion. One of the scientific explanations may be a great earthquake, perhaps accompanied by lightning, brought rain and terrible conflagrations in Sodom and Gomorrah. How? The fire may be caused by ignition of gas and seepage of asphalt emanating from the region. The region is rich in petroleum product, natural gas. So by earthquake, those petroleum product like the natural gas may seep out from the ground, and they may be ignited by lightning or fire from the kitchen, and within a second all the whole area can be exploded. The salt and sulfur were carried up in the sky. If there is explosion, the fire will be carried up in the sky, and from the human point of view, we may think that those fire rain down from heaven. So these are the scientific explanation. Once a thriving urban center, okay. This Sodom and Gomorrah was once a very, very important city. That can be proved by many archaeology. A variety of investigation on soil and sediment from the key layer gave evidence that tiny iron silica sulfur, this fragmented stain grained at only about sphere pressure. How strong is the explosion can be deduced from this finding. For example, these quartz, okay, soaked quartz are being found, soaked glass like that, okay. if there is a very strong force, that the glass will be scattered into pieces, into very finer particle. So one of the hardest rock, this quartz, even the quartz can be scattered into pieces. That shows the intensity of explosion, destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The accounts of Lot's wife. This is the Belwisdom, mountain of Sodom. Until this day, there is a lot of tourists, visitors there. You can go and see there. Lot's wife. May not be the same figure, but in those surrounding areas of the Dead Sea, like this Sol Mountain, okay? Sol Mountain. Sol hillocks, small hills, made up of sol, are still visible. Why ancient cities and civilization disappeared? The primary reason is these are the important basic reason. God is Israel to be his peculiar people, and all Israel enemies become God's enemies. So who can stand against the enemies of God? Secondly, God cannot condone the pride of nation. God cannot tolerate the pride of nation. So God had punished all the proud nation. Okay. So the third one is that God cannot allow idolatry to go unpunished. Because of idolatry, God punished the ancient people. And lastly, in the council of divine justice, there is sin to the quota of iniquity. Okay, this one, in a shortcut, we can just say, God had destroyed ancient cities and civilization because of their excessive wickedness. Okay, excessive wickedness is the fourth point. Explanation. Superficial glance at Canaanite religions demonstrate the iniquity of these people. Base sex worship was prevalent and human sacrifice was common. Child sacrifice. All these are the religious taboos. So, when ancient cities and civilization disappeared, be prepared for 5 marks. It's important. And what are the secondary reasons? God had destroyed ancient cities and civilization with the help of natural calamities like earthquake may destroy a town, famine famine. Okay, famine may destroy it or drove away the population of the area. Pestilence, okay, disease, pestilence, depopulated the city or territory. There was no vaccination during those days. Once a pestilence broke out, there is no chance of survival. Invasion took its toll, as did the drain of the available water supply. If the water supply being cut off, the whole populations will die out. So these are the other secondary reason. God may use the natural calamities, natural factors to destroy ancient cities and civilization. But the basic reason is moral. Okay, moral. So the evidence that can prove biblical accounts of fall of Jericho. So the fall of Jericho is one of the examples of how ancient cities are being destroyed. God destroyed miraculously, but not without human intervention. With the complete obedience of God's command, by going around the city wall 13 times, that the wall tumbled down. And with the help of the archaeological finding, it is found that the Jericho wall had collapsed inwards, okay, inside the wall. Had it collapsed in the outward way, the Israelites may also be the victims of the fall, but it was not so. And by the discovery of the remains of the Jericho, again, we can be sure that the wall of Jericho stood there, as had been mentioned in the Bible. Every archaeologist who has excavated Jericho has come to the same conclusion. Okay, same conclusion. And lesson 7 said evidence of Israel's God in Egypt. How can we prove that the Israelites had settled in Egypt? Okay, these are the answer. This will all come in the exam. Evidence of Israel's settled in Egypt. Number one, Egyptian personal names of the Levites. In the family of Levites, okay, in the families of Levites, okay, families of Levites, many Egyptian names. The Levites family had many Egyptian names. Number two, Canaanite place names in the Delta. In the Delta, in the mouth of the river of the Nile, many names around the Nile River had Israelites' name. That means Israelites had name those area. Okay. Canaanite place names in the Delta. Number three, Israelites and the Hyksos. So the time when Joseph entered Egypt may be the time of the Hyksos invasion, 1871. So Hyksos capital, Kenis, been mentioned in Psalm, Zoan. So archaeological discovery had found the place of Zoan, where the Israelites had settled during the time of Joseph. Egyptian authentic coloring. In the Bible, with the report of Moses, okay, how could Moses mention such title as chief of butler, chief of baker, overseer over Esau, superintendent of granaries? All these titles are titles used by the Egyptian, okay? Those tribals of the Israelites may not have such titles. But Moses, as been mentioned in the Bible, had his education in Egypt. And the Israelites settled there for more than 400 years. So because of all that, even the biblical records had used those Egyptian titles in the biblical record. Archaeology of Exodus, Archaeology and the Moses Book. Okay. In the Egyptian folklore, in their short songs and poems, they had many songs learned by their children, okay, about the story of Moses. But they do not say the name Moses. But in their folklore, in their rhyme, in their nursery rhyme, so to say, the story of how Egyptian princess found him in the ark of papyrus among the lakes by the riverside has many parallels in ancient lore. Like this rhyme are there in Egyptian history. Moses' Egyptian name, Child, child, okay, not the chili, the child, okay. Moses may mean the child. The Egyptian meaning of Mos is the child. But the biblical name, the Hebrew name, means to draw out, okay, to draw out of water. Egyptian name means the child. Who knows, the daughter of Pharaoh may not give the name, may just call him Boy Poo. Isn't it? The child. Then the Egyptian plague. All these Egyptian, the 10 plague, the 10 punishment of Pharaoh are very common in the Nile Valley. If the Bible had mentioned those 10 plagues in other parts of Africa, so to say, or in parts of Siberia, it is not believable at all, because even those natural calamities do not exist there. Okay, but those 10 plagues are very common in Egypt. That is number one, the natural condition, that it can occur naturally. And the second reason is that those 10 plagues are a punishment to the Egyptian gods, Egyptian 10 important gods. So God had directed those punishments towards the Egyptian gods, Egyptian satanic gods, so to say. The root of the Exodus, and by tracing the root map of Exodus, we can find out that the Israelites did not cross the modern Red Sea, not the Gulf of Suez, okay? But where the Israelites had crossed is the Yamsap, the Papyrus Sea. So here, underline this one, that Hebrew name Yamsap by Red Sea is plainly incorrect, for the word obviously means Red Sea or Mercy. That this can scarcely denote the Red Sea or even its northwestern arm, the Gulf of Suez, indicated by the fact that there are no rivers in the Red Sea. Okay, so Red Sea may be the correct one, which the biblical writers had mistakenly wrote the Red Sea. The Red or Papyrus Sea which the Israelite miraculously crossed may be supposed to be the Papyrus Lake or the Papyrus March. Okay. Lake Bala had disappeared. Lake Timsah, Lake Bala, Bitter Lake. All these are being discovered. All by following the route map in the book of Exodus, we can find out where Israelites might have crossed the Red Sea, the so-called Red Sea. Is there archaeological evidence of the Israelite exodus from Egypt? There are a lot of evidence. Okay, I'll try to show you the picture later on. Archaeological discovered 19th century Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone, it Egyptian splendid pass. Based inscription talks about Rosetta Stone had mentioned Egyptian history. Based on inscription had mentioned Assyrian Babylonian history. Moabite stone had mentioned the kings of Israel. Moabite stone had mentioned the time of the Israelites king. The war between Mesa and Omri, king of Israel. And the statues of Menhotep II, this one, Egyptian kings. The statue had been found. He may be the king of the Exodus. Menhotep stele, this is also in Egypt. Slave making, city war relief. These are just one example. And the last second lesson is Code of Hammurabi. Okay. This Code of Hammurabi you have to note down. And what is the material? A black oak slab diorite, 7 feet tall, 6 feet wide. It is discovered 1901. Okay, the year of discovery also. Note down. And how many paragraphs? 300 paragraphs of legal provision. Write short notes on Code of Hammurabi, or where and when Code of Hammurabi was discovered. All these things. And there are many similarities between Code of Hammurabi and Moses' Law again. Okay, why? The resemblance between Mosaic Law and the Code of Hammurabi is clearly due to similarity of antecedents and general intellectual cultural heritage. Underline this. Why is there the similarities between Moses' Law and Babylonian Law? Why? Due to similarities of antecedents and general intellectual and cultural heritage. If you are to explain in a simple words, due to common inheritance. Because they have the same genealogy, because they have the same cultural heritage. Even the Israelites are coming out from Babylon. There should be some likeness in the penalties imposed in terms of command statutes. Okay, all these things I have mentioned in the class in details. The Constitution of United States and the Constitution of India may have some similarities. That doesn't mean that they are copying from each other. Okay, what is important in India will be important in US, like that. So because of the same common needs of the people, law can be similar. So likewise, though the Babylonian is 300 years older than Moses' Law, that do not prove, that do not show that Moses had copied from the Babylonian law. Instead, there are far more difference than the similarity. A lot of difference. What are they? Number one, underline this one. Different in origin, govern a different type of society. The Babylonian society is a very urban, city life society, but the biblical background, they are the tribals. They are the ones living on herding of cattle and through plantations. Different morality. If we compare Babylonian law and the Moses law, there is no way of comparison in terms of morality. The meaning, the idea of God was totally absent. The idea of God was totally absent in the Babylonian code of law. The Moses law was filled with the idea of the divine. So here these are the other three examples during the 20th century. Remember this one, the difference? These are this important discovery 19th century equinox, 19th century Rosetta Stone, based on inscription, Moabite stone. These are three important discoveries of the 19th century. The three important discovery of 20th century, Code of Hammurabi is the first one. Elephantine papyrus is the second one. Hittite monuments is the third one. Okay? If not being added. So, don't be confused. These are the important discoveries of 20th century. What is the importance of Elephantine papyri? Elephantine papyri describe the time when the Jews had settled in Elephantine, in Egypt. Elephantine is one of the capital city of Egypt. Why the Israelites settled there? They are the refugee in those periods of time. In this Elephantine. So, by this Elephantine papyri, we can learn that the Israelites had run to Egypt for their life during a war broke out in the land of Israel. So, during this time, the Israelites, in order to survive the war, they had shifted their place to this Elephantine, southern part of Egypt. The Hittite Monument is a very important discovery. With the discoveries of the Hittite Monument at Bozaskeving in 1906. Many critics are being silenced. Those who said that the Hittites never exist on earth, because until this day, we cannot trace where any of their ancestors anymore. They are completely wiped out from the face of the earth, the Hittites. But still then, with the discovery of their history, their reports, whatever the Bible had mentioned about the Hittite Empire, Hittite kings, are being resurrected back. Then the Dead Sea Scroll, how was it discovered? In 1974 by the Sephards, by the Bedouins Sephards, okay? And this Dead Sea Scroll had contained the whole scroll, incomplete scroll, merit 800 documents presented. Here it says, portions of all the books in the Hebrew Bible except the book of Esther was found there. So this Dead Sea Scroll, it has been buried there for 2,000 years and was discovered in 1947. So the records of the Bible during those times are still similar with the records we have until this day, because the Bible had been copied down from generation to generation. So the Bible has been well preserved for thousands of years, had been proved by the discovery of the Dead Sea. It is important. The case of Sargon. Sargon, who is Sargon? He is the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria. But world history does not have much of the story of Sargon. But with the discovery of the Sargon records, what the Bible had mentioned about the king of Assyria can be clearly explained with the help of this discovery. if this Sargon documents had not been found, the biblical records of the Assyrian king may be unbelievable, or people may not trust the story. But with the discovery of the Sargon documents, Sargon writings, we can note the truthfulness of the biblical history. Tell the inscription about these 5 words, 6 words, 6-letter word, this may mean House of David. So this inscription, this particular stone may be a part of the building of King David. Ugaritic text, the importance of Ugaritic text is, Ugaritic text had mentioned how wicked, how evil are the Canaanite religion. So from this Ugaritic text, if we have learned how polluted or how unholy is the Canaanite religion, if from this we can learn that, we can justify that, why God had driven out all the inhabitants of all the original inhabitants of Canaanites. Why God allowed Israelites to kill them all? Because they are not fit to live on the earth. Okay, in the sense that they are very wicked. So these are the division of the 10 lessons. And I'll give you the other. There is some more pictures. Okay. This the importance for next Monday exam, if God's willing, we'll be conducting exam at those time. And on Tuesday, I'll just show you this picture. What is believing? Okay. How can we believe the Garden of Eden was still there? Where is it? Where is the Garden of Eden? Okay, these are the possible maps. This is the Tigris and the Euphrates. So the possible location, where will that be? So on the world map, the Garden of Eden would surely within this circle. And for example, some rivers had dried out, but some rivers had already dried out. But the satellite imaging shows that the riverbed was found there, under the sand, under the desert sand. That shows that those rivers which are not seen this day can be still confirmed by the riverbed. Tigris, Euphrates, Gihon, Pison. Okay, these are being modified into canals already, but in some parts where the canal doesn't run, we can prove that a river passes there. These are other where the riverbed had been found, okay, through satellite imaging. And these are some examples of the trees found in the Garden of Eden. Actually, this picture is not the Garden of Eden, but this is just example. Such big trees will be there in the Garden of Eden. Can be proved from the archaeological discovery. Such big trees will surely be available. The cat can pass through the trees, isn't it? Such big tree would surely be there in those days of the Garden of Eden. These are the writings on the wall, preserved. Ancient records, okay, all this. Maybe before the flood. These are the reports. It's like a boat, isn't it? Some animals are there. Ancient writing shows that the story of the flood. And these are the writings on the stone, in this cover. So, like these trees, fossils of a tree are found there, okay, where the Garden of Eden was previously located. These are not a tree anymore. These are converted into stone, okay. But these are the fossils of big trees, which you have seen before. So like this, okay? It is like a mountain, but this may be the trees. The remains of the trees. So Ezekiel said, Eden went down. If Eden went down, if the Garden of Eden, due to the disobedience due to the fall of man, so to say, that very big building, that very big garden, that very famous Garden of Eden, God had destroyed the Garden of Eden. So if Eden went down, as being described in Ezekiel, all the dead remains of the trees and all the animals inside the Garden of Eden, all may be converted into oil, as you have learned in science, isn't it? Those petroleum products and those coal are the dead remains of living things or living plants. So the Valley of Siddim is full of tar. Tar is a petroleum product. Oil mine, many oil mine. So these are the richest oil field. Where the Garden of Eden was located are now the richest oil field in the world. Iraq, okay, Iraq. You may know about Iraq, the richest. So this is where the previous Garden of Eden might have located. So why many oil fields are being found? The reason may be that those dead trees of the animals may be converted into petroleum. And about Noah's, this is the Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat can still be seen until this day. So this is a museum where you can find the remains of Noah's Ark. Those remains are being preserved inside this building. Noah's Ark National Park. So these are the landscape. Such landscape would be impossible had water did not cover once. So such a landscape is possible because of action of water. Like this landscape, if there had not been water before, such landscape would not be carved out. Cannot be simply carved out because of the wind weathering. This may be the action of flood. The action of the flood. See, such a rugged terrain, and like this rock, this is the first record of the finding of Noah's Ark. Now here is the actual photograph evidence of Noah's Ark. Really, this was written before 100 years before. So in search of Noah's Ark, these are the first report of Noah's Ark. So this Ararat, until this day, the top of the mountain of Ararat was still covered under snow. Even during summertime, it was covered under snow. So these are some of the findings of the remains of the building material of the ark. Wood, wooden plank. So these are the woods being discovered on the top of Mount Ararat. These are the remains of from point A to point B. When they have studied from point A to point B, where the remains are being found, if they calculate the distance, it is more or less the same as the size of Noah's Ark. How they have done the calculation, Mr. Palego had calculated. Because inside here, some remains of the wood are found here. So by comparing the size, it is same with the Noah's Ark. So these are the archaeologists. So inside the ark, inside the snow, okay, under the snow, such images are still visible. So this ice is one of the best preserver, okay. The scientists have discovered that one big cow, so to say, okay, was preserved under the ice for thousands of years. And they said that the meat are still edible. It was under the ice for more than 1,000 years, but the meat are still edible, not rotten away. If it is being preserved under the ice, okay, that is possible. So these are not the living things, of course. These are the woods being still preserved under the ice-covered mountain. So how the human lifespan dropped. It's about Sodom and Gomorrah. See, these are the place, some of the nearby places of Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe these are the Babetra. All the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are now under the Dead Sea, but these are the nearby cities of Sodom and Gomorrah where civilization had stopped abruptly. They've been abandoned abruptly. Based on the possible drawing of Babel, Tower Babel. Through the ancient writing, okay, this is one of the ancient artists writing. This may be the Tower Babel. These are some of the writings. And this may be the building. And this is the place, okay. What the archaeologists believe, this may be the exact place where the Tower Babel has been built. And it is said that even the the president of Iraq, even Saddam Hussein tried to build a building here, but he was not successful. So until this day, no structural building was at this exact place. These are the ancient records. So regarding the crossing of the Red Sea, okay, the crossing of the Red Sea, when people dive inside that Red Sea where the Israelites had crossed, they had found this iron, rusted iron. This rusted iron is circle-like shape, okay? Maybe the wheel of the chariots, the Pharaoh Chariots, are still found inside the water. A rusted iron. See, these are the pictures found inside the Red Sea. The pharaohs, the army of pharaohs are chasing after the Israelites. At the time, the water are being connected again, and they are drowned. So these are the remains of their chariots found under the Red Sea. These are the ancient records. And this is the pictures of the Pharaoh Chariots. Some are well preserved until this day. The chariots used by the pharaohs during the Bible times. And these are the mummies still preserved, okay? See, the mummies, the names of pharaohs are still being preserved now. They had found this, of course, inside the pyramid, but they have taken out and they have covered with glass, okay? So that no further decomposition will take place. You can see their pictures, the pharaoh. This is one of the pharaoh, Mereneptah dynasty. These are the kings of Egypt during the days of Israel. Ramesses II. This is Ramesses II. And this is the child. The Pharaoh's child, the eldest child, who died just before the Exodus, who had built hills in the firstborn. So, how can we be sure that this may be the Pharaoh of the Exodus, the child, the eldest child who died in the 10th plague? In no other ancient records, a child are not being preserved like this. Other child are not being preserved. So why this child was preserved in such an extent? The reason may be that this child will be the next king of Egypt. Okay, if he had not been died in the 10th plague, he will be the next king. So he had been treated as king. So because of that, he had been preserved. His mummies has been preserved like this. It may be the possible explanation. And now the next one. On Tuesday, we'll be having exam on special studies on Genesis. So I'll just show you these pictures. Special studies on Genesis. Okay. Different creation account. Let's see. Wrong presentation in Quora Digest. Okay. For example, the Enuma Elish. In the internet, you'll find this. The Enuma Elish. It has been mentioned there. So these are the tablets of Enuma Elish. Okay. These are the tablets found. Babylonian creation account. These are the images. Wrong presentation in Quora Digest means how people of the world. The Enuma Elish will later be the inspiration for the Hebrew scribe who created the text now known as the Biblical Book of Genesis. The word academia may explain in such a way that the Bible had been copied down from this. But these are the wrong presentation. We have to prove that these findings are wrong. So Enuma Elish, in those tablets, okay, in the first tablet it was written. This is the direct translation of the Enuma Elish. When the heavens above did not exist and earth beneath had not come into being, there was Apsu, the first in order, their begetter. They had mingled the water together before, when not on the gods. Okay, all these are the how. This is how Egyptian records are being. No, Babylonian records are being written. Okay, like this. That the complete details can be found in the internet. Only superficial similarities is what we have proved. Only the outward similarities is there. Enuma Elish often misnamed the Babylonian creation story. Actually, this Enuma Elish is not a creation story, actually. It is a story about the Babylonian history. I don't know the story. We don't have time to go through the beginning of comparative issues. Let the notes be enough. These are the details one. 12 gods of the underworld. The Hittite Empire. Okay, these are the Hittite kings. Hittite storm god and the Inanna. The Hittite storm gods. That is the goddesses. Ancient Greece. Okay, ancient Greece. The ancient Greece also have many gods. Okay, these are the gods of the Greeks. Zeus, Poseidon. Okay, Aries. You may have be familiar with some of the Demelia, Apollo. All these are the ancient gods of the Greek. In Greek mythology, okay, these are their gods and goddesses. In Norse mythology, these are their gods. Norse mythology, and these are the gods of the Babylon, the Babylonian gods. This may be the Marduk, the god who created man, and these are their gods. The scientists believe that these Babylonian gods are the aliens from other planets. These are the gods of Babylon. The gods of Babylon. Babylon mythology. All these are being still well preserved. Egyptian. These are the Egyptian gods. Isis, Osiris, Horus, okay, Set. All these are the Egyptian gods and goddesses. We don't have time to go through all their gods. These are the Egyptian gods. ancient Egyptian deities. So this is the Gilgamesh where the flood story had been mentioned. Okay, this is the flood story. They had translated out all this. And it has very resembling the story of Noah. Gilgamesh. Through the discovery of like these rocks, many books of Gilgamesh are being written out of this discovery. Sumerian cosmologists. These are their gods. The Sumerian pantheon. Okay, pantheon. Those big gods. Those who live for more than 10,000 years. Sumerian pantheon. These are the Babylonian gods. So again, Hubal. Canaanite religion. Canaanite religion. See, these are some depiction of the Canaanite religion. Very bloody in nature. And for the last, one more. This Genesis, okay, this will be the last. This is Genesis chapter 1 to 3, pictographic. Genesis means beginning or origin. It is called the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch. Universe formed by the Word. This is the universe. A time exists before the creation of the world. Okay. So a time exists before the creation of the ark. Jesus was already there before the creation of the ark. Now that was formless, and so even before the creation of the world, one form of work had existed. That may be before the Lucifer fall. The angels were there before the creation of the world. And from the angels, there's a time gap theory. Before the creation of the world, Satan had fallen from heaven. Before the creation of the world, the fall of Satan and his angels. This may be the beginning of Satan. Otherwise, how could Satan come? How could Satan be there in the Garden of Eden? Because he already existed before the creations of the world. The fall of Satan from heaven. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angel fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought in his enemies and prevailed not either. Their place is found no more in heaven. So the great dragon was cast out, and the old serpent called the devil Satan, cast out from heaven. Lucifer had been cast out. The spirit was already there, hovering over the water. And some people believe the earth is like this. If we go to the edge, we may fall. That's what the ancients are afraid of. Mesopotamian people thought the earth like this. Underwater, where the evil spirit lives. Egyptian people thought the earth like this. These are the skies. That God said, let there be light. And there is the first creation. So after their own kind, let them there be sign for seasons and 4 days. Say how the marvelous of God's creation, that is stands between the sun and the earth. So the earth was exactly located at habitable place. If a little nearer, if a little farther, what will happen? Let us see. This is the creation of the bats, the means of life. After their own kind. Day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 1, creation of light has been completed in day 4. Water, sky, and the occupants of the water, fish, bats, and dry lands occupied by land, animals, and man. And the Sabbath rest on the 7th day. the creation of man. So in Genesis we have the plan. God had made a plan, execution of the plan, and the blessing. The plan. Go ahead, consulted. Let us make man in our image. So man is a very special creation. Okay, all the other creation. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said, "Let there be fish," there was fish, birds, animals. But the creation of man is very special indeed. We'll see some of the pictures. Creation of sanctity of Marius. I give every green plants for food. Before the fall, okay, before the fall of man, before the disobedience of man, all humans may be vegetarian. But after the fall, before the fall, the lions and the sheep may thrive together. God's final plan of His creation. Okay, all this will be discussed in detail in the summer camping. The Garden of Eden, I have taken out from the same source. Tigris Euphrates. So the two possible locations, from here or from here. So the most possible way is this side. Okay, the Garden of Eden will be this side. The whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. So although it is not gold, this petroleum are there. The two main trees of life. These are just the figure, okay? Okay, of the creation of woman. The purpose of marriage union. Naming of all, Adam had named all the animals, isn't it? This is before the fall, where all live together peacefully, in harmony. The fall and its consequences, okay? The fall and its consequences. Because of the disobedience of Adam and Eve, the serpent, the curse and the serpent, the temptation, twisting the truth, he will surely die, he will not surely die. Open by the kind of temptation. Before the fall, they are not ashamed of being naked, but after the fall, they hide, putting off masks. They had been driven out from the Garden of Eden because of disobedience. Who told you we were being naked? Passing the bucket. Passing the buck, okay? Instead of confession, they are blaming each other after the fall, the serpent, judgment on the serpent, the nature of the serpent. The first Messianic prophecies, 3:15, remember that one? How did Christ crush the head? The skin of animal, okay? The skin of animal. Yes, the pictures. This clothing. Why did Satan tempt man? God did not curse man, the judgment to the woman. So all these Genesis chapter 1 to 3, these are the prophecies of the death of Jesus on the cross. They are being driven out from the tree of life, and the angels cherubim guard the gate so that people could not access to the tree of life anymore under their sinful condition. Satan and his followers, Satan and his angels are being now judged already. There is no plan of salvation for the angels, for the fallen angels. But for men, God had given us a plan of salvation. So for that, He had driven out from the Garden of Eden. and men shall return to the earth, but the spirit shall return to God. So through this mortality, we can go back, we can reach back to our Creator. So that is God's purpose. What happened to the tree of life? The Bible says that there is still a chance for to go back to the Garden of Eden. So man's when driven out through the death of Christ, there is a possibility that for being born again, on the last day we will go back to the Garden of Eden, to where God had dwelt. Okay, that's all for today.